Hello everybody, welcome into the channel. Today we are going to be looking at the 2023 NFL draft class, see how all of these teams did this year, and give them all grades. Let's dive right into it here. Starting with the Arizona Cardinals, really liked what they did in this draft. They traded back and then traded back up to go get Paris Johnson. He was my offensive tackle one in this class. Really liked that move there. BJ Ojulari, I thought was a really nice value in the second round as well. I think he's one of the better speed rushers in this draft. So Garrett Williams, Michael Wilson, both players that would have been drafted much higher had they been able to stay healthy throughout their careers. Garrett Wilson dealt with an ACL injury. Michael Wilson just dealt with various injuries that kept him from being on the field much. Definitely like both of those guys there. Clayton Tune might also get a shot to start this year when Kyler is not playing. So definitely like some of these picks here. Owen Papo, Keitrell Clark as well. Both guys that I liked in day three. Papo has some nice speed. Keitrell Clark is just a very underrated player in my opinion as well. Thought overall the Cardinals did a great job. You pick up a first round pick from Houston next year as well. That's likely to, be a relatively high pick there. So I'm going to give the Cardinals an A- here. I am a little bit stingy with these grades here. Really don't want to give out many A's or A pluses unless I think, these teams really do deserve it. But Cardinals had a fantastic draft, getting off to a strong start here with Arizona. Moving to the Atlanta Falcons next, they took Bijan Robinson at 8th overall. Bijan Robinson was my second overall player in this draft by just pure talent. So, from that perspective, I do completely understand this was a little bit of a weaker draft class. Just go get your guy. Also, I'm not a running back hater by any stretch of the imagination. I was a big proponent of Bijan Robinson, but top 10 is early, especially when you already had Tyler Algier on the roster and, some other really productive running backs. I think Robinson will take that offense to a whole new level, and Arthur Smith finally, gets a pure dominant running back, which is awesome. But do you think that was, perhaps not their biggest need there? Matthew Bergeron is a solid second-round pick. They announced him as a guard. Definitely think he should be a guard at the next level. Didn't love his foot speed out in space at tackle, but definitely think that he can be a nice player on the interior there. They built a pretty solid offensive line with Lindstrom, McGarry, Jake Matthews, so really kind of like what they're doing there. Zach Harrison, somebody that, hasn't put it all together at Ohio State, but he was immensely talented. And if you think you can get the most out of those physical gifts, absolutely worth a swing in the third round. Don't think it was anything special there, but I like that pick. And then Clark Phillips, I think, was a very instinctual corner. A lot of people had him going in the first round earlier in this draft process. I know I did. He ended up testing pretty poorly. He's not a very good athlete. He's pretty small as well, but his instincts are fantastic. And I definitely think that, if he was just a little bit taller and a little bit faster, he probably would have been a day one or day two player. So absolutely really like Clark Phillips at that point, taking the swing. I thought overall the Falcons did a pretty good job. Nothing really blew me away. They get a solid B here. Just like what they did, nothing too crazy, but I think overall a solid draft, and that should, the Robinson picks and the Bergeron pick should certainly help propel that offense forward. The Baltimore Ravens now thought they had a pretty solid class as well. I'm going to give them a B. Zay Flowers, I thought, was a good player. He was my wide receiver too after, Jackson Smith and Jigba, so I thought they got, the correct wide receiver there, but I did like the value in some of the other picks. Really liked Deontay Banks or even Joey Porter Jr. for them at corner rather than going wide receiver, but Zay Flowers is a great dude. He's a very, very talented player as well. He may never be a dominant wide receiver one, but I do think that they have done a good job kind of replenishing that wide receiver core, getting Odell Beckham, now Zay Flowers, you already had Bateman, so I think that's good there. Trenton Simpson is just a complete athlete. He's not really a linebacker at this point. He's just athlete, and I think that's worth taking a swing on in the third round. But, I think putting him next to Roquan could really get the most out of him, just kind of let him be a run-and-chase type of player. So absolutely no problem there with that Trenton Simpson pick. Tavius Robinson was kind of a meh pick to me. Kayode Kelly, I did like in the 5th round. I think he is physical. He's got some nice tools. Wasn't the most productive at Stanford, but has a lot of experience, and I do like some of the traits he brings. Voorhees is somebody that probably would have been drafted much higher too. He did tear his ACL at the combine, so maybe potentially a starter down the road in the 7th round. Can't be too mad at that at all. At least a nice depth piece in year 2. So I think the Ravens did a pretty good job. No 2nd round pick here, but I liked Flowers, and I like the development potential of Voorhees, Simpson, and Kayode Kelly. Overall, nothing groundbreaking. Solid B for the Ravens. The Buffalo Bills now, they got Dalton Kincaid in a trade up. He was pretty much the consensus tight end 1. He was not my tight end 1. I actually had him rated below both Mayer and Washington. Washington we will get to. I do think fell due to medical reasons, but I like what Kincaid can do in the passing game. I think he would be somebody that would be a nice complement or even potential replacement to Dawson Knox. They need to get some wide receivers and receiving threats in the middle of the field, and so I definitely like that pick for Kincaid, and they seem to be pretty happy to go ahead and get him there. I thought O'Cyrus Torrence was a great value at the end of the second round. Really not sure why he fell that far. I get it, he's a little bit bigger, he's not the most mobile, but definitely like what they did, getting O'Cyrus Torrence there. And then Dorian Williams, nice athletic linebacker to replace Tremaine Edmonds. I think he can potentially be a starter on day one, and really like him as just a nice developmental athletic piece, and they seem to get the most out of that position pretty consistently. So like that pick as well. Justin Shorter, the wide receiver from Florida, also a nice pick in my opinion. He popped out to me a lot when I was watching Anthony Richardson. Definitely somebody that has some potential to be a potential Gabe Davis complement or again replacement there. Just some depth in the back end of the 7th round there as well. So overall, really liked this Bills draft. I give it a B+. I think Torrance, Dorian Williams were great finds. I think Shorter and Kincaid can be contributors as well. So really like what the Bills did. B+ grade for them for me here. For the Carolina Panthers now, I have them getting a B+ as well. Bryce Young, the first player off the board here. He was my quarterback 1. He is exactly who I thought they should have taken. Was a little bit worried there that they were going to overthink it, go with someone else, but I do think Bryce Young was the best quarterback in this class, and getting him alone I do think can be franchise altering. They did give up a lot to go get him, so that does kind of play into this a little bit here, but I do think that was the correct pick for the Panthers. Jonathan Mingo has all of the talent in the world, has the speed, the size in a class that was very small at wide receiver. He's kind of got those two traits that you really look for. He does need to be a little bit more consistent with his hands, but really like him in this. He potentially was a little bit early at 39, but definitely no problem taking a swing on the upside wide receiver at all. And DJ Johnson was a big reach to me. I do not think that he was worth, a third-round selection. He's ran very fast at the scouting combine, but not somebody I would have taken in round 3. I did really like Chandler Zavala and Jamie Robinson, though, on day 3. Thought both of those were very good depth picks as well. I think Zavala, pairing him with Ike Ekwonu, who played together at North Carolina State, I think that's a nice duo, and I think Zavala was underrated in this process. So really kind of like the Panthers draft here. Get your franchise quarterback, get a potential weapon for him, and then some nice depth pieces as well. B+ draft for the Carolina Panthers there. For the Chicago Bears up next, I gave them a B-. Definitely didn't have any problems with this class, but I do think it was based on potential a lot more than anything else. So I do think it could be very good, but also has the potential to be a little bit disappointing as well. Darnell Wright, they traded back one spot and selected him. I like Darnell Wright. He's not who I would have taken there. I like Skoronski and Broderick Jones more than him by a considerable amount, but I do like that Darnell Wright can plug right in at right tackle. You don't have to move Braxton Jones around. Your offensive line is pretty much set at this point. And so I like Darnell Wright. I do think it was potentially a little bit early for him for what you get. I do think he needs to play at a little bit more consistent weight and really get that conditioning up and be a little bit nastier in the run game. For his size, I would like to see that a little bit more, but really like what he could potentially be for them. Gervin Dexter as well, somebody that was very, very talented, just didn't really put it all together on a consistent basis. Some of his flash plays are absolutely first round caliber. Other times he is really slow getting off the snap, and he just cannot make a move. He cannot shed the block, and so he's somebody that I do think will need to be coached up pretty consistently there, as well as Zach Pickens, who I think showed some really nice flashes as well, just was very inconsistent. Both of those guys, those interior defensive linemen they drafted in the middle rounds, I do think have good potential, but not sure that they have a very high floor as well. Tyreek Stevenson in the end of round 2, I do think was a very good selection. He's physical. He's got some nice, traits as well. So definitely like solidifying that secondary. You got Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, and Tyreek Stevenson now in that corner room, which I think is a pretty solid lineup there. Roshan Johnson and Tyler Scott, Terrell Smith as well. I think all really, really nice picks. I wasn't as high on Noah Sewell. I don't think he can be a modern linebacker, not somebody I would have taken, but overall, I think it was a solid class. They need to get the most out of some of those guys like Gervin Dexter and Zach Pickens, maybe even Tyler Scott as well, who had some issues with body catching and drops, but they absolutely all have the talent to be very dynamic pieces for the Bears. Just need to get the most out of them. Going with a B- here for them for now. For the Cincinnati Bengals here, my favorite team, I did think they had a pretty good draft. I liked Myles Murphy at number 28. He has all the traits in the world. His 2021 tape was much better than 2022. There was a coaching change in there, so I do think that perhaps did play a little bit of a factor into it. He is very talented. He's got long arms, great speed. He's got bend a little bit as well. He needs a much more diverse set of pass rush moves. I like his long arm move, his bull rush is there, but he needs to show a lot more consistently that he can win in different ways, perhaps some inside counters as well. I do think that he is a high upside run defender and pretty polished in that area as well. I think they need somebody that can spell Trey Hendrickson on rundowns and really let him be a true, pass rush specialist. At this point, really kind of let Myles Murphy take over those early down work. Maybe you can kick Murphy inside to a 3-tech position on obvious passing downs, get Hendrickson, Hubbard, Osai, and all those guys on the field. I definitely think that would be a very fun pass rush unit. DJ Turner and Jordan Battle both adding to the secondary there. Jordan Battle is somebody that I honestly do think could start from day one if he beats out Nick Scott, who came over from the Rams. I think DJ Turner has lots of upside. They were starting Cam Taylor-Britt and Eli Apple in the AFC Championship game. Obviously, Chidobe Awuzie will be coming back, but I think just adding more depth to that corner room is absolutely a good idea. DJ Turner has absolute wheels and should be a good fit there. Charlie Jones, Chase Brown, Andre Yosefis, I thought were all pretty good picks as well to just add some playmakers to that room. Chase Brown, I think, could be a very nice complement back to replace Samaje Perine for Joe Mixon, who I do believe will be sticking around at this point. Charlie Jones can be a good punt returner and potentially a Tyler Boyd replacement. Yosefis has all the traits. You get a new punter as well. Thought overall this was a good draft for the Bengals. I give them a B+. They didn't, take any crazy swings in this draft, but I do think that Murphy has a lot of upside. Turner and Battle can be contributors for them as well, and some hope there that the playmakers can also be factors at some point as well. So do like what the Bengals did for the picks that they had. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns, AFC North rivals here for my team. Man, the Browns had a good draft. I gave them an A- here. I really liked what they did for the most part. Cedric Tillman was somebody that I really liked. I had him rated above Jalen Hyatt, his teammate. Thought he was one of the better wide receivers in this class. He's not super shifty after the catch. He's not going to be a dynamic route runner, but he's very physical at the catch point. I think he can win with physicality, both at the route stems and through the catch point as well. So really like Tillman. I think he is a nice wide receiver for them. Siaki Ika, it wasn't huge on, but I do think that it makes a ton of sense that they did go with him there. The lack of length and the testing numbers do concern me a little bit, but I do think that he's a fairly high upside player. You just need to get the most out of him, and they need some help on the interior of that defense. So I think it was a smart pick. DeJuan Jones, at that point, just take the swing. And I know that he was potentially dealing with some serious weight problems. There was obviously lots of concern about him, but at that point, just take the swing. He is a very high upside player. It's day 3. You might as well take him, and I think the Browns did a very good job of doing that. Isaiah McGuire, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Cam Mitchell, and Luke Whippler, I thought were all steals on day 3 of the draft as well. McGuire was a very, high upside player with some nice trades, had some length, a little bit of a bigger defensive lineman, but really liked him. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was one of my most underrated players in the entire draft class. I really liked what he can do. Think he'll be a good backup for a long time. Cam Mitchell, somebody I had a 3rd-round grade on as well. Really liked what he could do. He is not the most consistent in coverage, but has some nice traits. And Whippler, I have no idea why he fell to round 6. Maybe something medical related, but absolutely thievery if they got him there and, he's fully healthy. So fantastic draft for the Browns. A- there. I didn't love the Ika pick, and they didn't get a whole lot of first-year contributors just because of where they picked. So that's why it's not higher than that A-, but they absolutely got a lot of guys that I really liked, and good for them for doing so, finding the value on day 3. Now the Dallas Cowboys here, really wasn't a huge fan of their draft. I give them a D+. Really just wasn't a fan of what they did here. Mozzie Smith was a bit of a reach to me. I like, the ceiling there. I absolutely get it. He was an absolute athletic freak, but I just didn't think he showed a very consistent down-to-down consistency in either the pass game or the run game. I thought he was blown off the ball a couple too many times in the run game. I thought, the flashes were there in the pass game, but I just didn't see a first-round player personally there in Mozzie Smith. Luke Schoonmaker was a huge reach to me. I didn't understand that pick at all. There was still Tucker Kraft on the board, Darnell Washington on the board, even, some players like Brenton Strange I thought were better players than Schoonmaker. Really did not understand that pick at all. He's going to be pretty old for a rookie. Just not a fan of that pick. Overshown and Fehoko, both decent picks. I like Overshown as kind of a versatile defensive player there. Safety, now turned into a linebacker. Like what he can, potentially be, but I just wasn't a huge fan of this at all. Love the Deuce Vaughn story, getting drafted by his own father. He's an electric playmaker, but he's super small as well. So just really wasn't super impressed by the Cowboys here. I thought Smith and Schoonmaker were big reaches, and then Overshown and Fehoko just decent players, but not guys that are going to be big contributors year one. So just not a big fan of the Cowboys draft. D+ for me. For the Denver Broncos now, I thought they had an okay draft. Give them a C+. Thought trading up for Marvin Mims was a little bit unnecessary. Didn't think that he was, fantastic round 2. I get it. It was, one of the last picks round 2 there, but just didn't think that he was worth necessarily trading up for. And then Drew Sanders, I do think, was actually a very good value. He is very raw, but, the linebacker slid down the board, and I do think that the Broncos needed one. They took advantage. That was a very good pick. Riley Moss, J.L. Skinner, Alex Forsythe, all fine pieces. I didn't think any of them were, really great values. I thought they were taken pretty much appropriately for where they should have been, but nothing crazy there. I think Mims could be a decent playmaker. Drew Sanders is a nice developmental piece, and then I think the other 3 are just probably going to be depth for you. So not terrible, but just not a lot of high impact players for me day one, or really kind of guys that I expect to be big time contributors in the future as well. So C+ for the Broncos for me. Not terrible, but not my favorite draft either. Speaking of not my favorite drafts, the Detroit Lions on the clock, and man, I just feel so bad. I'm rooting for the Lions. I want them to be good, but man, I just do not agree with their philosophy in this draft. Trading back, I'm sure they wanted Devin Witherspoon. There was a lot of link there. The Seahawks take him the pick before, they're on the clock, and I think, they kind of had to switch gears, and I just don't like the gear that they chose in selecting Jahmyr Gibbs. You already kind of had Jahmyr Gibbs and DeAndre Swift. I didn't even have Gibbs as my running back 2, personally. And I get it, he has explosive ability, but down-to-down consistency, I didn't think he showed amazing vision or the ability to break tackles. He's very shifty in the open field, and, he has home run ability every time he touches the ball. But I think he's a complimentary back. And I'm not taking a complimentary back 12th overall, especially when I already have DeAndre Swift and I just paid David Montgomery. I think that was probably one of the worst picks of the entire draft. I don't understand it at all. Jack Campbell, he's a linebacker. I think, he was the best linebacker in this class to me. I get it. I think he could have snuck into round 1, but 18th was a little high for me, especially when there were some good corners on the board. There were some other options. I would have rather them take Michael Mayer at that point. There was just other options that I think they could have gone with. Then they went and took Sam Laporta in the top of the second round. I didn't have an issue with Sam Laporta, but he wasn't, a top 4 tight end for me either. So I just didn't really like the process of selecting him over Mayer. I thought that was just big time overthinking there, and I don't have a problem with Laporta, but that was a little bit high for me. Brian Branch was a great pick. I'm glad they went up and got him. I thought he did not deserve to fall as far as he did, so that was absolutely one of my favorite picks perhaps in the entire draft. So that does kind of build things up a little bit for him. But Hendon Hooker taken in round 3, I have absolutely no problem with the value here. And so that's not my issue with this pick. My issue is that I don't want this pick to prevent them from selecting a quarterback in the future if they need to upgrade. I think Hooker is somebody that is kind of going to be a decent player from day one once he gets healthy, but I don't foresee him really having a super high ceiling. To me, I just think that, if you're moving on from Jared Goff, you should probably be looking for a higher upside option, which at that point, why is Hooker even in the building? If he went somewhere where, the Buccaneers, where he would potentially have a chance to start day one, or, he went to another team where, there was a legitimate chance for him to step in day one, kind of show what he can do, I actually like that much better than him sitting behind a good, not great quarterback in Jared Goff that, people are kind of on the fence if he should even be the long-term starter. I just don't love that situation because if Goff fails, I think they're going to need an upgrade over Hooker anyway. So with Hooker, it's just that I hope he's not the long-term plan unless, he really develops, which it's just unlikely because of his age and, I just don't think he has the high traits to become a true franchise quarterback. Broderick Martin was very early for me as well. Just did not like what the Lions did in this class. Just going to give them a D. I'm rooting for them. I'm hoping that they prove me wrong, but I just was not a fan of what they did in this class. The Green Bay Packers were a very up and down class for me. I give them a B. I wasn't a big Lucas Van Ness fan personally. I had a mid to early second round grade on him. Just thought he was so raw. Now, he has a lot of similarities to Rashawn Gary, who they have gotten the absolute most out of. And I love his raw power. He's very young. I totally get why he is a top 15 pick. I just personally would not have made that pick myself, especially with some of the other edge rushers on the board. But I don't have a huge problem with Van Ness. I do think that Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, that double up there was awesome. I really liked both of those players. Musgrave is more of the true vertical threat, while Kraft is a great yak weapon. They desperately needed tight end help, and both of those guys I think can step in and be good contributors early on. Jaden Reed is somebody I also like as well as a nice slot option. Just surround Jordan Love with as many weapons as possible. Just really kind of like that strategy early on. Sean Clifford was just puzzling to me. I just don't think he is an NFL caliber quarterback, even in a backup capacity, but hope he proves me wrong there. Carl Brooks and Carrington Valentine, I did think were nice swings in day 3 as well. They got some other players, Wicks, they drafted a kicker as well, so I do think that, hopefully some of those guys will hit for them, but I thought Valentine and Carl Brooks in particular were guys with some high upside traits that I did like as well. So overall, not a huge fan of Van Ness or Sean Clifford, but I did like some of their middle round selections, Musgrave, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, and some of their late picks as well, Carl Brooks and Carrington Valentine. So overall, pretty decent class for the Packers. For the Houston Texans, may have a little bit more of a bold take for this one, but didn't really love what they did in this draft. I like CJ Stroud, I like Will Anderson. Stroud is who I would have taken second overall. Will Anderson is well worth the third overall pick. That's not where I have the issue. It's the value of getting both of them. That was my problem. I mean, they gave up a lot to go get Will Anderson, essentially. You're paying for, essentially the price of a quarterback. And I like Will Anderson, but giving up your first rounder next year, which is likely going to be a top 10 to 15 pick, I'm just not sure I can get behind, giving that pick up when you really could have gotten, somebody like Nolan Smith or Jackson Smith and Jigba to go help out at your quarterback at pick number 12. And then, I can't fully get on board. I like Will Anderson, the player, but I just think that trading up was just too much there. And then trading up for Juice Scruggs was very just puzzling to me. I do not understand that as well. I think that Scruggs was not the best center prospect on the board by any stretch of the imagination. I just thought there were other prospects on the board at center that are much better than Zeus Scruggs were, and they traded up for him, which I just think was kind of ridiculous. They also selected Tank Dell. I mean, he's going to be a fun gadget weapon, but I'm not sure he's going to be a true wide receiver just due to that size. I know his separation ability, his route running are good, but he's just got a very short catch radius. I just don't know that he can be a true consistent wide receiver at the next level. Did like Jarrett Patterson. I do think that was a good pick. Horton has some upside, but just wasn't a huge fan of what the Texans did. I mean, I didn't hate it. Give him a C+ here, but I like Stroud. You get your franchise quarterback. I like Will Anderson, the player. You get, a premier edge rusher, but I just can't quite get behind the amount they gave up to go acquire both of those guys. And then I thought most of the rest of the draft was very uninspiring, personally. Now, the Indianapolis Colts here, my favorite draft, hands down. I loved what the Indianapolis Colts did in the 2023 NFL Draft. Anthony Richardson, admittedly wasn't my QB3. I did have Will Levis as a higher, prospect than him, but I get it with Anthony Richardson, and I do think he had to go to the right environment, and I do think Indianapolis could be that right environment for him. I mean, the traits are absolutely off the wall scary. He is probably the most physically talented quarterback ever coming into the NFL. The running ability in Shane Steichen's offense is going to keep him as probably a high floor player. He absolutely needs to, figure out his accuracy. And I do think that the accuracy is a major, major issue. But the upside is absolutely there, and I get it with Anthony Richardson. The rest of the draft, though, is really where I think the Colts just absolutely killed it. Julius Brents was one of my favorite players. Thought he was incredibly underrated. Long arm, very physical, plays with a nasty attitude. They traded back and got him. Just sensational there. Josh Downs, very good slot receiver. Think he'll be an immediate contributor. Not really sure why he fell to the third round there, but really like what Josh Downs can be as an immediate contributor in the slot. Blake Freeland and Adetimwa Adebawore, not really sure, why Adebawore was there at all. Think he was way undervalued in this draft, unless there were, serious, injury concerns, something like that. I do not understand why Adebawore was there. He was an absolute certified steal in the fourth round. Freeland has some nice traits. He can potentially develop into something, though, we'll see about the likelihood of that. Darius Rush, super underrated player in this draft. I had a second round grade on him. Getting him in round 5 was highway robbery. And Daniel Scott, incredibly good athlete. Will Mallory, very good athlete. Evan Hull, somebody I thought was very underrated as well. Jalen Jones, great 5-star corner from Texas A&M. Didn't quite put everything together, but has all of the traits you look for. Jake Witt, super athletic. This draft class was just very athletic, very talented. And, it's just insane what they were able to get in this draft, in my opinion. This is an absolute A+, hands down, one of my favorite drafts easily this year. And so, definitely think the Colts just absolutely killed it. Fantastic work by Chris Ballard. The Jaguars, on the other hand, I thought were kind of underwhelming. I give them a C here. Anton Harrison was somebody I didn't love in the first round. I thought he was more of a mid-second round player to me. I get it, with Cam Robinson being suspended, the need there is understandable, but I just wasn't a huge Anton Harrison fan in the first round, even if it was late. Brenton Strange in round 2, I thought that was a little bit early, but especially over Tucker Kraft. I was a big Tucker Kraft guy myself, and really do not like them taking Strange over Kraft. Tank Bigsby was fine, but I just think that there was value in the running backs in round 3 to 6, really, and I don't know that Bigsby was really kind of a super valuable pick. Ventrell Miller has some nice ability. Antonio Johnson, I think, was a steal in the 5th round. Parker Washington was a good pick as well. Got a lot of depth guys as well later on in the draft, so maybe some of those guys will turn into something, but I was just a little underwhelmed by what the Jaguars were able to come away with. A C for them, for me. For the Raiders now, I kind of like what they did. I give them a B. I thought it was a solid draft. Tyree Wilson at pick number 7 wasn't a massive need for them, but I do think that it was overall a good selection still. I really like Michael Mayer coming up for him. At the end of the day, though, no quarterback before Aiden O'Connell just scares me. Jimmy G's injury history is bad, to say the least, and I would have taken a swing on Will Levis. I would have, traded up and selected Will Levis in the second round. I would have maybe even considered him at number 7 overall. So I do not like missing out on a quarterback before Aiden O'Connell. I thought Byron Young and Trey Tucker were a little bit of reaches there. Tucker especially, I'm a UC fan, but Tyler Scott was the better wide receiver. Trey Tucker is kind of a gadgety player, just not worth a third round selection. Jacorian Bennett, just somebody I do like. I think that was decent value in the 4th round, as was Chris Smith in the 5th. Overall, just decent. I liked Wilson. I thought Mayer was a very good pick at the top of round 2, although just not coming away with a quarterback. And some of the other, Young and Tucker, I do think were a little bit of reaches as well. So overall, decent draft, but, not my favorite as well. The Chargers next, like what they did as well. Not my favorite again. Solid B here. Quentin Johnston was my wide receiver 3. Would have preferred Zay Flowers or perhaps a corner. I really liked some of the corners on the board. Again, Deontay Banks, Joey Porter were there, so wouldn't have gone with Johnston myself, but I understand the fit within their offense. He provided that deep threat a little bit to them. Tuipolo, too, and Dion Henley were decent picks. I really like Henley in the 3rd round. Thought the linebackers slipped a bit too far this year, so like that a lot. And then just kind of from there, Jordan McFadden, I thought was a good selection in the 5th round. I think he was pretty good value there. Duggan, a late round swing at quarterback as well. So just thought the Chargers did an all right job. I like kind of their day 2 a little bit. Some of the picks in day 3 were decent. And Quentin Johnston wasn't my favorite pick, but I understand the role within the offense. Solid B for the Chargers. For the Rams, I actually kind of liked what they did, give them a B+. I thought Avila and Byron Young were pretty good values with their first 2 picks. Really kind of like what they can potentially be, is just solidify that offensive line, give them another speed rusher to, really kind of unlock that potential there on the edge. Kobe Turner, I think, was a decent pick as well in the third round. Wasn't a combine invite, but absolutely deserved to be. Stetson in round 4 was something I can't get behind. Didn't really like Stetson Bennett very much, and not somebody I would have drafted, especially that early. But I do like Nick Hampton, Warren McClendon, Davis Allen, Trey Hodges-Tomlinson. Like, I think they got some pretty good value on day 3 especially. So definitely kind of like what the Rams did. They, have been a team that just didn't have a lot of picks for a very long time. They needed to upgrade the depth on this team because, they were just a couple of injuries away from being a terrible roster, which they were last year. So like that they added a lot of depth kind of all over the place. I like this draft for the Rams. The Dolphins only had 4 picks. I think they did a decent job. I like Cam Smith. I think pairing him with Jalen Ramsey, and you've already got some pretty good corners as well as Xavier Howard. And I really like the Cam Smith selection. Devon Achane, I get it. He's a perfect scheme fit, but they've been doing really well with kind of bottom of the barrel guys, and I get it. So maybe you add somebody in that can be a true difference maker. But again, I just didn't think the value for running backs was really there on day 2. I think it's more day 3 where you were really getting good value there. And with the 4 picks that they have, I just wouldn't have made that selection myself for the Dolphins. Elijah Higgins, Ryan Hayes are fine depth. I just thought that the Dolphins draft here was very meh. It's kind of hard to be super excited about only 4 guys in a draft class. So C+ for the Dolphins. Nothing too egregious, but nothing that really jumps out at me either. Personally, not a big fan of the Vikings draft. They get a C- for me. Jordan Addison was just somebody I've been lower on since day 1. Just really didn't think that he had the ability to be a true outside wide receiver. Now, I do think Justin Jefferson's going to take a lot of the focus of the defense away from him. I do think that he can be productive, just being a good route runner from the slot. And I do like, his potential to just be a high floor option that can move the sticks and be a decent playmaker, but I am very worried about the size, worried about the ability to get off the press. Just not a huge Jordan Addison guy, especially in the first round, especially when Deonte Banks was still on the board, which I think was a huge need for them. Then they come back, take 2 corners, Mekhi Blackman, Jay Ward, just very meh to me in the middle rounds there. I would have much preferred getting Deonte Banks and then taking a swing on a wide receiver in the 3rd round. Didn't love that. Jaquelin Roy, I do think was a good pick in the 5th round. Do like his upside, as well as Dwayne McBride being a nice backup running back. Jaron Hall, didn't have a draftable grade on him. Really wasn't a fan of Jaron Hall at all, but I understand taking a swing at a quarterback. Just would have done it with a different quarterback personally. The New England Patriots up now. I think Christian Gonzalez pretty much bumps this grade up to a B+ alone. I love that pick. He was my cornerback 1. The traits are absolutely all there. I get it. He has a ways to go to become a little bit more polished, but just don't understand why he slipped as far as he did. The Patriots absolutely got a guy that fits their scheme perfectly. He's just a great pick in round 1. Perhaps one of my favorite picks of the entire draft there. Keion White, I thought, was good value at that point. I was worried that he was going to go round 1. He shouldn't have, but middle of round 2, I do think is a little bit more appropriate for him. I think he fits their scheme pretty well. The middle round picks were okay. I did not like taking a kicker in the 4th round. Just, that's too early for me, but it's fine. City So, Antonio Mafi, I do think were decent swings in the interior of the offensive line with Jake Andrews. Kayshon Boutte is also a very interesting, player. Don't mind a swing in the 6th round. Sure, why not? And the rest of the guys just kind of depth pieces. You drafted a punter as well. So not a bad draft from the Patriots. Give them a B+. That is really boosted by that Christian Gonzalez pick. Just love that fit. Love that value as well. For the New Orleans Saints now, I thought they had an okay draft. Gave them a B-. Not my favorite, but I think Brian Brzee has tons of potential. Obviously, hopefully, he's able to kind of move past the events that, transpired last year, move past his injury history as well. So definitely hoping that his best football is in front of him, and really like the upside there. But I do think he has ways to go to really be an impactful player. Isaiah Foskey in the 2nd round was too early for me. Just didn't really like that fit. It's early 2nd round. It's just, he's a captain. He can win in a variety of ways, but just not a huge fan of, that pick that early. Keandre Miller was fine. Potential Alvin Kamara replacement. Do like that. Again, think the value was there in day 3 for the running backs, but not bad. And Saldivari, Hayner, and A.T. Perry, I do think were good values there. A.T. Perry especially. Getting him in the 6th round, there must have been an injury issue or something. I get it. He wasn't, amazing this past year, but I really, really like the traits. And I think that, he is a very high upside player to put in that New Orleans offense where he doesn't have to be a big contributor, but has the chance to be. Really like that fit there. So overall, some good things, some bad things for the Saints. B- overall for me. For the New York Giants next, I thought they killed this draft. Getting Deonte Banks, they moved up one spot to get him. He was my corner 3. I thought he was a very good player, top 15 grade for me. Not sure why he fell, but the Giants getting him fits perfectly in Wink Martindale's scheme, so absolutely love that fit for them. John Michael Schmitz at 57, I think, was a steal. I think he was the best interior offensive lineman probably in the entire class, and no idea why he fell. Jalen Hyatt, not the biggest fan personally, but getting him in the 3rd round, that speed, absolutely. Why not take the swing there? I was very hesitant on him as a first or maybe even 2nd round player, but in the 3rd round, absolutely worth a swing. Eric Gray, I think, fits their scheme really well as well, and some nice depth pieces as well on defense in day 3. So overall, I think the Giants killed this draft. Deonte Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Jalen Hyatt, Eric Gray, like those guys alone, definitely very, very good picks, and love what they did. Solid A for the Giants for me. For the New York Jets now, I didn't love their draft. I didn't hate it either. I gave them a B-, but Will McDonald at 15 was a bit early for me. I think that, moving back from 13, missing out on Broderick Jones was just a mistake on their part. Obviously, the Steelers come up and jump them, and I think that's who they would have taken, but I just don't love that, I get Will McDonald fits their scheme really well, but I just love some of the other edge rushers on the board a lot more. Nolan Smith especially would have taken him. I also liked Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Miles Murphy more than Will McDonald as well, so just not a big fan of that. Joe Tippmann, the center, I thought was fine. I would have gone with John Michael Schmitz, but, he's a fine interior offensive lineman, solidify, that area with Aaron Rodgers coming in, so absolutely no problem with that there. Carter Warren was fine. Israel Abanikanda fits their scheme perfectly, and he's going to be an excellent complement back for, obviously Breece Hall's there, but you also got Michael Carter. I'm not sure exactly where he'll fit in there, but he's young, incredibly productive, fits the scheme very well, so I like that pick. And Zach Kuntz in round 7, not sure why he fell. Gotta be something medical related, but the number 1 most athletic tight end ever based on RAS score, so absolutely worth the swing there for the Jets. B- overall for him for me. The Philadelphia Eagles absolutely killed this draft. Getting Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in the first round was just absolutely ridiculous. I get the off-the-field concerns with Jalen Carter are absolutely there, and I completely understand that, but he couldn't be going to a better environment. It's also kind of a pick for the Eagles where it's complete house money. And, you want to bet the house at that point. And he absolutely is betting the house. He's the most talented player in the entire draft to me. So getting him at number 9, totally worth the swing. And then Nolan Smith, I don't know why on earth he fell to number 30. I loved him. And he was a top 15 player for me. Absolute beast. He's a great person. I think he can keep Jalen Carter in line as well. So love that there. Taylor Steen and Sidney Brown, I thought were very nice picks as well in day 2. And then Keely Ringo, I wasn't a big fan of him. I thought that this was really more the appropriate value for him, but still, he's young, super athletic, long, physical. Like, I get at this point in round 4, sure, why not take a swing, especially when he doesn't have to start right away. And then Tanner McKee and Moro Ojomo, both good picks as well. McKee, I'm not sure why so many quarterbacks were taken above him. I get it. He's kind of a statue within the pocket, but he has a much better arm and better processing than a lot of these other guys that were taken in front of him. Ojomo has great upside as well. Just don't understand how the Eagles did this. The absolute A-plus draft. Fantastic work by Howie Roseman, and he's killing it. He is just running circles around the NFL right now. As a Bengals fan, it absolutely pains me to say, but the Steelers killed this draft as well. They get an A-plus also. I just think they did a fantastic job navigating this draft. Broderick Jones was a very good player. He was my number 3 offensive tackle, and he was the last of the really, really good ones, so absolutely no issue at all trading up and getting him, especially jumping the Jets, who I do think would have taken him. Getting Joey Porter, who I thought they would take at number 17 if the tackles were off the board. Really like that fit as well. Obviously, the family connection, which is bound to happen. Keanu Benton was incredibly underrated throughout this process. I think he can be a starter from day 1, really learn under Cam Hayward. Just thought that was a great pick. Darnell Washington obviously fell due to injury concerns. He would have been picked much, much higher than this, but At this point, sure, take the swing. I am all for, talented players. Even if there are injury concerns, at some point it becomes good value. And I think Washington was good value at that point. Herbig and Corey Trice both have great traits as well. So overall, man, the Steelers did a very, very good job on this draft. I thought they really kind of got some really big pieces at big positions of need, and man, they did a very good job. A+ for the Steelers. Going the complete opposite direction now, the 49ers, I thought, had a terrible draft. I give them a D-. Jair Brown has very limited athleticism. I think you could have gotten a very similar player in day 3. Jake Moody, taking him, I just can't get behind that. A kicker in the 3rd round, that's just outrageous. And I don't care how big the need for a kicker is. You can get one in, day 3. I cannot get behind a kicker in day 2. And then Cameron Latu, I thought was a big reach as well. There were other tight ends on the board that were much better, in my opinion. I liked Darrell Luter and D. Winters as nice swings, Ronnie Bell as well. But, man, this was a terrible first couple of picks for the 49ers, in my opinion. And I think they recovered somewhat on day 3, but I don't think they really got one impact starter besides their kicker in this draft. And so I'm out on the 49ers draft. Just was not a fan. D- for me personally. Thought the Seahawks, on the other hand, did a very good job. They get an A- for me. Devin Witherspoon, I thought, was a very good player. Had Christian Gonzalez rated just above him, but both were top 10 players. Absolutely no issue going with Witherspoon. And having him and Tariq Woolen, that's a scary corner duo there. Smith and Jigba, I mocked them, Smith and Jigba, many times at pick number 20, and it was just a great fit. Him slotting in as that slot option with Lockett and Metcalf on the outside, that's going to be a very tough trio of wide receivers to guard. Thought Derek Hall was a little bit early, but still understand the fit. Zach Charbonnet was my running back 2 over Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not sure how much of a role he will have with Kenneth Walker there, but thought Charbonnet had the frame to be a good pass protector. Thought he was a better receiver than Kenneth Walker as well. Very physical runner within the tackles, so just really like what Charbonnet can do. Thought Anthony Bradford was a good pick as well, like his upside. And Oluwatimi out of Michigan, great pick. Kenny McIntosh as well, I thought was pretty decent value. So overall, really liked what the Seahawks did. A- for me, and I really like kind of the upside of this class to, really start pairing it with that last year's class of all of a sudden the Seahawks team really kind of rebuilt themselves within 2 draft classes. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I thought, did a decent job. I liked Kalijah Kancey a lot. He needed to go to a team with a true nose tackle. Vita Vea is absolutely that. So really like the fit with Kalijah Kancey. Think he can be a great penetrating 3-tech. Maybe kick him out to 5-tech on rundown. So absolutely like what Kancey can do for them. Thought Cody Mock and Yaya Diaby were kind of fine picks. Mock, I wasn't a big fan of, especially trading up for him. But, I understand that, the fit is there, the need was there. So I don't have a massive problem with it. I do just think it was a bit early. I really like Savatia Dennis and Trey Palmer as just upside swings as well. Payne Durham, I thought was a good pick as well. So I really liked their day 3. I thought their day 2 was a little early for me. But, I think overall getting Kancey and some of the depth pieces they did, overall, solid draft, B for me. For the Tennessee Titans, I was worried when they picked Peter Skoronski. I liked Skoronski a lot, and I thought he was potentially the best player on the board, but I was just worried about who was going to be the future quarterback of this team, and then they made the move to go get Will Levis. When you look at those two together, man, I really like what they did. Overall, give them a B+. Really like Skoronski and Levis. I truly do believe that the upside is there with Levis. I do think he can become a franchise quarterback and was well worth the swing in round 2. Just not quite sure why he fell as far as he did. Tyjae Spears, I thought, was a dynamic weapon. If he can stay healthy, I think that's a good pick, but I am very concerned about his health. It sounds like he doesn't have an ACL. There's arthritis in the knees, so a little bit worried about that pick there. Didn't really love their day 3, so that kind of bumps this down a little bit. But Skoronski and Levis were great picks in my opinion, and definitely think that they could potentially be big pieces of their future moving forward. Finally, we have the Washington Commanders. Did not love what they did. I give them a D here. Emmanuel Forbes at number 16 was just questionable to me. I don't have a huge issue with Forbes going in the back end of the first round, but man, over Christian Gonzalez, over Deontay Banks and Joey Porter Jr., I just cannot get behind that. Jatavius Martin was a fine pick, but I would have rather them just going up and get Brian Branch, who went 2 picks before them. I think there's a much bigger gap between those two than 2 picks. So, It's okay. I mean, obviously Branch wasn't there when they were selecting, but I'm not a huge fan of that selection. Ricky Stromberg, there were better centers on the board. I'm not a huge fan of that. KJ Henry, Chris Rodriguez, I thought were decent picks, but overall, I just wasn't a big fan of what the Commanders did here. D for me in this draft, and just wasn't a big fan of what they did. So those are my draft grades for the 2023 NFL Draft. Let me know down below what you thought. A little bit of a longer video, but really kind of want to show you all of my thoughts on this draft class. We'll definitely be moving forward, taking a look at these guys and their transitions to the NFL. So if you like NFL content just like that, NFL draft content, please hit that subscribe button down below. Helps grow this channel on the road to 800 subscribers at the moment. Do appreciate you watching so much, and do hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.